Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the Riverside Township Radio Players this evening. We're going to begin our program with a detective yarn, an episode from Candy Matson, who is a private detective from San Francisco who lived in an elegant penthouse on Telegraph Hill. This show aired only on the West Coast on NBC from 1949 to 51. And it starred Natalie Park Masters as Candy, and the show was written by her husband, Monty Masters. And despite the show being very popular, it never attracted a sponsor, so it never became a national program. It was a regional program on the West Coast. And unfortunately, there's only 14 episodes that survive out of the 92 that were made. So we hope you enjoy meeting Candy Matson tonight as she solves the mystery of the black cat.
Hello, Yukon 2, 8209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 2, 8209.
Well, that was a pleasant afternoon, Rembrandt dear.
Pleasant, but unprofitable. As many times as I've been to the horse races, I never seem to have the gumption to quit when I'm ahead.
Like Damon Runyon once said, horse players die broke.
I'm also reminded of that old song, Horses Don't Bet on People. But the scenery was lovely. I enjoyed it.
Yes, Golden Gate is a beautiful park.
Why are you headed up into the Berkeley Hills, Candy?
I wanted to avoid that traffic on the East Shore Highway this time of afternoon. And two, I just had a thought.
Bully for you. So few people have them anymore. What might the idea be?
I know a cozy little spot to eat over in Lafayette. How would you like to have dinner there instead of town?
Oh, splendid, girl. Sounds delightful. My, this is rather forlorn country up this way.
Yes, the real estate boys haven't caught up with it yet. Wait till they see the results of the recent census. Homes will be sprouting all over those hills like poppies are now.
Help me, please.
Whoa, what was that?
Well, it came from back there, Candy. Must be from that house. It's the only one around here. Come back. Help. Serious?
Yes, it is that house. Let's find out what this is all about, Ducky.
Now there's a fine start for a cozy dinner in Lafayette. It could only happen to Candy Matson, San Francisco's well-known private investigator. Whether she's at home in her penthouse on Telegraph Hill or at the races in Albany, it makes no difference. Trouble always seems to pop up its dangerous head. And this was no exception. A quiet afternoon watching the wrong horses finish in the right positions, then driving along a road on top of Berkeley skyline, and out of the dusk, a man's cry for help. That cry led to the maze of events that would have been done justice to the Alfred Hitchcock movie. Want to hear what developed after the man called for help? Well, here's your gal to do it, Candy Matson.
What was that the man said about a maze of events? He's right, but in such a mild way, just to pick a word at random. It was murder. Sorry if the word sets up a feeling like a fingernail down a blackboard, but leave us to confront it. That's what it was. Murder. And it might have gone on ad infinitum well, that's part of the story and comes later. What comes firster was the fact that I stopped the car, turned around and drove up in front of this lovely, lonely house high above Berkeley, overlooking all of San Francisco Bay. The front door was open. So Rembrandt and I walked right in. There, by an open window, was a man on his knees, draped over the windowsill from where he had called.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's a heart attack. Quick, Rembrandt, help me get him on the couch.
Oh, surely.
Then we'll get his collar open and loosen his tie. There we are.
My wife gone for a doctor.
Good. How long ago?
Don't know. 10 minutes, maybe. Can't wait. Too late. Here, take this envelope. Deliver it. Deliver.
Just take it easy. Don't try to talk. Save all the strength you possibly can.
This important. Must talk. Must.
I've got his tie off, Candy.
Yes. Never mind his collar, though. It won't do him any good. Not now.
Oh, Candy, you don't mean he's dead?
I'm afraid so. I can't feel any pulse.
Oh, this is a fine kettle of smelt. How do we explain this, Dove?
The only way to explain it, just tell what happened the way it happened.
Who will believe that we were just driving along a lonely road, heard this chap call for help, went to his aid, and then had him expire gracefully half a minute later? Oh, it's too pat, Candy.
The truth is always hard to swallow, Rembrandt.
Well, this is cozy. What do we do now?
Leave. Report it to the police and be on our way. There's nothing we can do by hanging around.
We could stay and console the widow when she returns.
No, I hate scenes like that. She'll cry, and then I'll cry, and I'll feel miserable for a week. Come on, Ducky, let's go.
You aren't forgetting the envelope, are you?
No, that was the request of a dying man. I'll follow through with it.
Oh!
Rembrandt, what's wrong?
It startled me. A black cat just ran across the doorstep in front of us.
No, don't start anything like that. A cat's a cat, whether it's black, green, or beige. It's only the kind that walk on two legs that make me worry.
Well, start worrying then. Here comes one of the males of the species.
Oh, pardon me.
Certainly. Are you the doctor?
Yes, that's right.
I'm afraid you're just a little bit late, Doctor. The gentleman in there is dead.
What? Jerome dead? Oh, the fool. I warned him.
I'm not being curious, you understand, but where's the gentleman's wife?
Why, inside, isn't she?
No. Just before he died, he said she'd gone to get you.
Well, she called me on the phone. I assumed it was from the house here. Well?
Oh, I just knew something like this would happen. It was that black cat.
Oh, Ducky, come. By the way, Doctor, what's the gentleman's name?
Moreland. Jerome Moreland. Wait just a moment, young lady. If you don't know him, what were you doing inside?
Oh, that's a good question. Answer the good Dr. Candy.
Well, my friend here and I were driving up the road. Obviously, Mr. Moreland made him to the window, opened it, and called to us as we were passing. I turned about, went in, the door was open, found him on his knees up against the windowsill. We lifted him onto the couch, tried to make him comfortable, but it was too late. He died in less than 30 seconds.
Oh, come along with me, will you please? First, I want to examine Jerome. Then I'll have to have some information from you for my reports.
We went back inside the house, and the doctor busied himself with whatever doctors busy themselves with when they examine a corpse. Rembrandt and I stood in the entrance hall and watched while we had a smoke. When the medic finished, he fired a volley of questions at us: where we lived, how long, occupations, etc., etc. Then he excused us. It felt funny being on the opposite end of an inquisition, but the doctor was nice enough about it, and it had to be done. We gave up the idea of dinner in Lafayette, drove back across the Bay Bridge, and ate at a place in Chinatown. And all the time, I had one tiny gnawing thought in the back of my head. What had happened to Moreland's wife? When one's husband is dying, you don't stop off for a pound of hamburger and call the doctor from the butcher shop. After dinner, Rembrandt, who had been very silent, spoke up.
Dove, I can't place my finger on the exact cause, but I have a slight touch of the vapors.
Oh, Ducky, I'm sorry.
It was either the sight of that poor man dying on the couch or the tomato chow yuck. In either case, I'd like to get home, attack the aspirin bottle, and retire to my downy. Would you be a love and drive me to my domicile?
Oh, certainly, dear. I've got a little errand I want to run anyway.
Oh, girl, are you going to entangle yourself in this Berkeley thing?
You know me and my hunches, Rembrandt. Something smells about this deal, and I don't like it. In the first place, I'm not too sure about that doctor. The more I think about it, the more it strikes me that he gave the late Jerome Moreland a very amateurish going over.
Well, I noticed that, too.
That was a family home, Ducky. It showed great, huge gobs of loving care. If Moreland's wife was that kind of a homemaker, she wouldn't just run out of the house and call the doctor and forget to come back.
I admit it does sound suspicious. It's that cat, believe me.
Oh, you do have a touch of the vapors. Come, Lab, I'll take you home. You're becoming delirious. I drove Rembrandt to his place on California Street, then over Kearny to the Hall of Justice. It was just possible that my number one boy, Inspector Ray Mallard of San Francisco Homicide, might still be on the job homiciding. The only place to park was a red zone. So I took the loyalty oath, parked, and went into the grim gray structure of justice. Mallard was still homiciding.
Well, Cupcake, what brings you around these dark dungeons?
Not love, not at this late hour.
Well, if that isn't just like a suspicious foot flat. A girl drops around to say hello, and right off the bat, she gets a verbal left right in the chin. You gotta admit, Candy, the thing looks phony. Social calls are usually made a bit earlier in the evening.
Okay, you've got me. I'm here on business.
You see? If you'd admitted in the first place, we would have saved 5 lines of dialogue. Where's the pitch?
I just met a doctor.
How thrilling. Just doesn't happen to just anyone.
Said doctor affected me like the aphids.
Well, what's the ephus on the aphis?
It has something to do with a gent who died under my very nose, Mallard, dear.
Well, that's occupational with you. Now suppose we start from the beginning, then I can sort of sort the facts.
Do you know a man by name of Jerome Moreland?
Jerome Moreland? Are you kidding? He's merely one of the world's outstanding scientists.
Then shake hands then with the hand that unloosened his tie. He up and died this afternoon.
What? Why, this is terrible, Candy.
Mallard, dear, I've never seen you quite so upset.
It's going to upset the entire country. Dr. Moreland was a very vital cog in the United States international security.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
You will when you start reading page 1 of tonight's papers. Come, Candy, you're better than that. Moreland, doesn't it mean anything to you?
Nope, sorry.
He's the man who played one of the leading roles in developing the A-bomb. He contributed largely to the H-bomb, and from what I've heard, he was working on something currently that would outmode both of them.
Oh, sure, now I remember. He made the cover of Time about a month ago, didn't he?
That's the one.
Imagine. And I was there when he died.
How'd it happen, Candy?
Rembrandt and I were driving up this road in Berkeley. We heard this fellow call for help from his house. We went back, and there he was. Heart attack, I'm sure.
What a shame. Moreland meant an awful lot to the security of this country. Well, he was one of the colossal brains of the world. Of course, you'll be called in for an inquest, Candy.
Oh, sure, that I know. After all the data the doctor put down, I'm going to be the star.
Who was the doctor?
What?
His name. What was the doctor's name?
Mallard, and this you won't believe, I forgot to ask.
And you make a living as a private eye? Oh, Candy, give it up.
Marry me and I will.
Let's not change the subject.
One of these days, one of my hints is going to seep through that sponge-like head of yours. In the meantime, thanks for the information on Jerome Moreland.
You leaving, Cupcake?
Uh-huh. I've gone as far as I can here. That supersonic barrier of yours, Mallard, is a little hard to crack. As I left the Hall of Justice, the fog was oozing in through the Golden Gate. The lights of the city shot up and in turn were sent back from the fog bank, giving the town a fluorescent look. I bought a paper, and sure enough, there were the details on the death of Dr. Jerome Moreland. Headlines, that's what. He was everything Mallard said he was, a world-renowned figure. And of course, my name was mentioned prominently as having been there at the time of his death. I went home, hit the sack, and had a fistful of dreams for myself. Mallard was the star, in color. The fade-out came with me in Mallard's arms just as the bell rang and saved me from going another round. It was 9 o'clock the following morning. Hello, Yukon 2, 8209.
Mrs. Candy Madsen?
That's right.
Oh, sorry to wake you. This is the coroner's office in Berkeley.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Oh, you'll have to appear at the inquest of Dr. Jerome Moreland this afternoon at 1 o'clock. This office.
Okay, I'll be there. Thanks.
Quite all right.
That definitely was the end of Mallard in color. So I got up, showered, dressed, and started applying the lipstick, and that's when I remembered. Looking for the lipstick in my purse, there was the letter the good Dr. Moreland had entrusted to me. I'd actually forgotten all about it. I looked at the envelope. It was addressed to Hans Mittelstadt, Snug Harbor Hotel, Embarcadero, San Francisco. I had an appointment to have my hair done, so Mr. Mittelstadt would have to wait. I dropped down to my girl, Veda. I sat, she worked, and several pin curls later, I picked up Rembrandt and drove over to the coroner's office in Berkeley. It was the usual routine, questions answered, I testified, then Rembrandt, then the doctor we had bumped into the day before, and still no Mrs. Moreland. That, to me, was the major issue in the whole deal. There was only one opening, and that was Hans Mittelstadt at the Snug Harbor Hotel on the waterfront in San Francisco, and that's where I went.
Who?
Stand to windward, and I'll do it again. Mittelstadt. Hans Mittelstadt.
I don't believe we have anyone registered here under that name. Of course, I've just returned from vacation.
Well, if you can get your mind off the Whispering Pines, would you take a look in your book?
Yes, of course. I'm terribly sorry. There doesn't seem to be any Mittelstadt listed.
One moment, dearie. What's that, right there?
Oh, I must have overlooked that. That is Mittelstadt, isn't it?
Doesn't spell Smithy. Now, come on. What's the room number?
Look, miss, why don't you beat it? You're just leading with your chin.
It's my chin, and I'll lead with it if I want to.
Are you acquainted with Herr Mittelstadt?
Acquainted with him? Of course. Not only that, I have a very important letter for him.
Well, why didn't you say so? Room 332, to the left after you get out of the elevator.
The clerk lifted an eyebrow toward the north, indicated where the elevator was. I found it, the elevator, not the eyebrow, and hoisted myself to the third floor. A few steps around a dingy corridor, and I was face to face with room 332. I knocked. I cooled my heels for about 10 seconds and knocked again. Still no answer, so I tried the door. It squeaked open. The blinds were down, and I was in almost a dusky darkness. I tumbled around for the light switch, found it on the wall next to the door, and clicked it on. What I saw wasn't pretty. The body of what had been an attractive woman in her early 40s, sprawled out on the floor on the other side of the bed. It only took one look to tell me that she was dead. A set of finger marks around her neck told me how it had been done, and another look at her neck told me who it was. A locket with the name inscribed in back, Ruth Moreland. I'm glad I got that far, because that's when the lights went out. Oh. I floated through space, through for an eon or two, then vaguely something came into audible focus, a voice. A familiar voice. Yes, it was Mallard. At first it sounded as though he were coming from a deep well. So that's where I was. Then his voice changed.
Come on. Candy, snap out of it. You've been out long enough. Come on, Cupcake, get with it. I'm tired of having to hover over you like a duenna. So you've got a lump on your head. I've got work to do.
Little by little, his voice came into normal shape.
Candy, be reasonable. Untwirl your eyes and talk to me.
The lights came back on. Mallard stopped spinning around, and I saw where I was, a cot in an emergency hospital.
That's the girl.
Hi, Mallard, what happened?
Supposing you tell me.
I would if I could, but I can't. I know I got smacked, though.
That's for sure. You could use that knob on your head for a bookend.
How did I get here?
Well, it seems whoever tapped you on the noggin didn't want it to take permanently. They gave you the treatment lightly, just enough to put you in the blackout, then went through your purse like a tornado through Kansas. The room clerk at a joint called the Snug Harbor phones the police to come and pick up one limp tomato named Candy Matson and one very dead tomato named Ruth Moreland. Did you have anything to do with Mrs. Orland's ugly finish, Candy?
You know better than that, Mallard.
Well, answer me this then. Could that hotel clerk have given you the wallop?
Might, but I don't think so.
I was just wondering. She had shifty eyes, like a 49er backfield. Okay, so somebody goes through your purse. Candy, look at me. As best you can. That's a girl. Now, do you have information somebody could be after?
Mm-hmm.
It's not in your purse.
Mallard, have you been going through my purse, too?
Oh, don't get so excited. It was only in the line of duty.
Don't you realize that a woman's purse is private domain?
Well, not when the owner of said purse is laid out unconscious on a hotel room floor. Now, answer my question. Do you have any information someone could be after?
I already did. I'll repeat the answer. Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, it's not in your purse. Where is it?
I have it on me.
Oh,
Much safer than a purse.
yeah. What's it all about? Candy?
Honestly, Mallard, dear, I can't tell. I really don't know.
What's the information?
I don't know.
Who killed Ruth Moreland?
I don't know.
You know, Candy, sometimes our friendship makes my job awfully tough. Okay, so we don't know nothing. The chief is terribly unhappy about this whole thing. Take my advice, don't go on any long trips.
I wobbled to my feet, and Mallard took me back down to the waterfront to get my car. Then he patted me on the hand, and I went home. Now, I was more than just curious. If somebody tagged my head with a sap, I wanted to know what the reason was. So throwing etiquette out the window, I reached down inside where I was keeping the letter and opened the envelope. Addressed to Hans Mittelstadt, it read, "Too many after Formula 12K have decided on this method. In case my heart goes bad, you will receive this. Look for the collar on Jake. Keep up the good work, Jerry." Now where was I? Look for a collar on Jake. Jake who? Whom? What sort of a collar? Barrymore? Prince of Wales? Hoover? In spite of the Gene Krupa symphony going on in my head, I wanted to hear more. The only chance of getting sane was to revisit the late Dr. Jerome Moreland's house in Berkeley. I eased back over the Bay Bridge, held out my hand with 2 bits at the toll gate, held my breath as I passed the clam flats and whipped up into the hills. There it was, the house where Rembrandt and I had heard the late scientist calling. Naturally, it was locked, but I knew a way to get in, and suddenly I was. I probed about, expecting nothing, and found just that, nothing. I tried the back door. It led out onto a terraced patio. I came up short. There, under a tree, was a small boy, sitting with a cat in his lap. The same cat, I imagined, that had frightened Rembrandt. Well, hello there, Sonny.
Hello,
What's your name?
Tommy. What's yours, lady?
Candy.
That's a pretty name.
Yes, it is. Very pretty. I hope I didn't startle you.
Well, yes, you did, frankly.
My apologies. I was looking for my son. He must have climbed over the fence. I didn't expect to find him here. Now that both Dr. and Mrs. Moreland have passed away, Tommy, Where have you been?
Right here, playing with the cat.
Ah, yes, of course. Here, let me have the cat. That's a good lad. You come right home now. Mommy says that dinner is almost ready. Again, I'm sorry, miss. I hope I didn't frighten you. Come right home, Tommy.
That's a pretty cat, Tommy. How long have you had him?
Oh, he's not mine. He lives here with Mr. Moreland.
Oh, I see. Well, don't you think you'd better go along with your daddy?
That's not my dad.
What? Who is he, Tommy?
I don't know. I never saw him before.
What do you know about that? Listen to me, Tommy. What's the cat's name?
Jake.
Thanks, Tommy. I'll see you later. You've got one gross of popsicles coming on me. Sometimes I'm a dope. I should have sniffed something when the guy didn't question my presence in the Moreland yard. Now he had a head start on me. He disappeared around the corner of the house, and I ran over there. Nothing but fence. Only one way out, and that was over. I wasn't too familiar with fence climbing tactics, but I could learn, and did. In a hurry, I shimmied over the other side just in time to catch a glimpse of my man, with the cat clutched firmly under his arm. He was running down the back lot. There was a little stream running through the property, dividing the homes on one side of the block from those on the far side. I saw the plan he had in mind. He was going to cut across the small wooden footbridge, duck up through one of the yards on the other side out in front, where he obviously had a car waiting for him. I saw I'd never be able to head him off on foot, so I ran back the way I came in, found my car, and whipped around to the other street. Empty. It was a one-way street, so I followed, taking what I thought would be the same course as my quarry. I must have gone about 15 blocks when all of a sudden I was confronted by one, a crowd, two, a couple of very messy-looking cars embracing each other head-on. What was the commotion, officer?
Take a look. I shouldn't have to explain that.
Quite a tangle. Anyone hurt?
Yeah, the lady in the sedan is pretty badly banged up. The guy in the coupe is dead.
The guy in the... That's him.
What? Do you know him?
No. Was there any sign of a cat? A black cat with white paws?
Have you been drinking, lady?
No, officer. That man had a cat with him.
I haven't seen any cats, and I was only a block away when I heard the crash.
Then Jake's bound to be in the vicinity. Excuse me, officer. I've got to see a cat about a man. I got out of the car, left the officer with his mouth open and his arches flat. Now, if I were a cat, where would I go? Someplace away from the confusion of people and wrecked automobiles. That's where I looked. And sure enough, I found Jake in 5 minutes. I picked him up, got back in the car, drove over to the Hall of Justice in San Francisco. I didn't have to worry about my Fred in the coupe. I knew where we could find him if we needed him, on a slab in the Berkeley morgue. I found Mallard sitting at his desk going over some papers. I walked in and plopped Jake, the cat, right in front of him.
What the? Get that thing out of here, Candy.
What's the matter, Mallard, dear? Is the great, bold footflat scared of cats?
It doesn't look dignified. Get him out of here.
I have a hunch Jake is a very valuable cat. He belonged to the late Dr. Jerome Moreland.
What are you up to, Candy?
See that collar around Jake's neck? It has a little container on it. Pry it open, Mallard. I think we'll find something.
It's a solid little thing. Wait a minute. There we are.
Wait a minute. Come here, Jake. On the floor. That's it. Empty the tube, Mallard.
Well, what do you know about that? Microfilm.
And 5 will get you 10 that they contain the formula for Dr. Moreland's latest development.
Okay, Cupcake. Start unraveling the mystery.
Well, this is going to sound incredible, but it's true, so help me. Just before Dr. Moreland died on the couch, he gave me an envelope, asked me to deliver it to the name on the outside, Hans Mittelstadt, Snug Harbor Hotel, Embarcadero, San Francisco waterfront. That's where I got smacked over the head by Hans Mittelstadt himself. He'd read the accounts in the paper stating that I was present at Moreland's demise. He figured the good doctor had given me information to pass on, whacked me on the beanie, and went through my purse.
Well, I'd like to have a talk with that guy.
It's too late, Mallard. He's busy atoning for his sins. He was killed this afternoon in an auto crash in Berkeley.
Well, that saves me a spot of work. I don't like guys who go around slugging my favorite private eye.
When I got home after having my head examined by a sap, I decided to look at the message inside the envelope. I thought that if it was worth my getting my skull cracked, I was certainly entitled to snitch a look. The meat of the thing indicated that said Mittelstadt was to look for the collar on Jake. That left me nowhere, Mallard, until I got to thinking about what Rembrandt had said earlier. It was the cat. I had kidded Rembrandt about that, and then I did some more thinking. It was just a hunch, but it worked. A little boy told me the cat's name was Jake. The cat carried vital information in that thing on his collar. Just how vital remains to be seen when you have your boys enlarge that microfilm.
You were right. It is incredible, Candy. How about Mrs. Moreland? How did she figure in the deal?
The way I get it is this. Moreland and Mittelstadt had worked together. Just recently, Moreland had finished his formula. He'd been working night and day. As a matter of fact, that's what brought on his fatal heart attack. In his type of work, he trusted no one except Hans Mittelstadt. A bad trust, as Mittelstadt was a foreign agent and he was here for the express purpose of getting the facts and figures away from Moreland. He became impatient, bumped into Mrs. Moreland on her way to call the doctor, forced her to go to his hotel where he tried to make her tell him where the doctor kept his records. She wouldn't talk. So, in a wild burst of frenzy, he choked her to death. That was when I walked in, shortly after.
These spy boys are tough cookies.
Yes, but not especially smart. If he'd been patient, I'd have given him that information willingly, according to Dr. Moreland's dying request. Isn't that irony for you?
That's right. The poor dope was built by his own chicanery.
As it was, he almost got away with it. If it hadn't been for that auto wreck, he'd have been off and running, back to his comrades, and I used the word deliberately.
Well, Candy, I've got to admit, you used your head on this one.
I most certainly did. I've still got that lump. Come on, Mallard. Knock off for a little while. You can buy me a Gibson.
A Gibson? Sure, you've got one coming.
And while we're at it, one big bowl of milk for Jake, straight.
Listen again next week at this same time for excitement and adventure. Just dial
Candy Matson, Yukon 2, 8209.
And here is the cast of tonight's show. Ellie Babka played Ace Private Detective Candy Matson. John Byhun, Lieutenant Ray Mallard. Jacob Pelka voiced Candy's sidekick, Rembrandt Watson. Kathy Juarez played the hotel clerk. The multi-talented Jay Summerfield played multiple roles. He played the unfortunate dead guy, Jerome Moreland, the doctor, Hans Mittelstadt, and the police officer. Donna Amesmeyer was not only our director, but was the coroner's assistant and that wonderful cat. Sound effects were courtesy of Marty McNulty, who also played Tommy. And I am Allison Byhun as your narrator. We will be back in one moment with our next show, The Canterville Ghost.